This is Junto, the engineer's perspective. I'm here with my good friends Matt Burgess and Dave Stewart. I'm Corbin Buckler. Today we're going to talk about the drought in the western United States. So sit back, crack open a cold one, let's get going. Get into the drought in the western United States.
Is that going to be our intro? He also bitched about our intro, or like their lack of.
We just went straight into it.
We just went straight into it.
It's more of an intro than the first episode.
It's all about the incremental improvement. That's why I told her. I'm just like, there are like 5 shittier episodes that we have not put out there.
Those go behind a paywall.
Yeah. Hey, join our Patreon to listen to our 5 pre-recorded episodes from the early days.
Yeah, I don't really know how to intro these topics. Do you think you could use like news blips, like from YouTube or something? Like, you know, if we're talking about the drought in the western United States, and we throw, you know, there's like, you know, 10 to 20 seconds of like news blips of like the Colorado River's, you know, 40% full, blah blah blah.
I think I heard something about this like last year. It's like news over the wire is fair game. So like routers,
yeah,
is fair game, but like your local ABC syndicate may not be. News that, how would I even Google that?
That might be something to play around with.
Yeah, that could be fun, but actually take some editing skills, which we may or may not possess.
I don't know. I've been getting some little quick keys on Audacity going on.
Damn,
it hasn't been too
bad.
bad.
Are you gonna get one of those weird like little programmable keyboards? Have you seen those that like the streamers have? Just get some pre-programmed keys going.
No, but I've got the Red Dragon, so I've got like
12
hotkeys that I could get going.
Damn.
What is the Red Dragon?
It's like a gamer's mouse, mice, whatever. So you can program these 12 like little macros. I used it in AutoCAD a lot.
Nice.
You know, cut, copy, paste, blah blah blah.
Yeah. That's
so I might get and you can have like, I think there's 5 different settings you can have on it. So I could have an Audacity setting.
Right.
Anyways, those are all good. That's a good idea for, I think, later on.
I mean, that was a great intro. So we've covered what we're going to talk about and this surprise widget that's called a Dragonfly. We should also put a link in an Amazon store for a Dragonfly.
Dragonfly,
Yes.
If you're listening out there, send us some free mice and the sponsorship.
No, just sponsor us.
For all 10 of our listeners.
Hey, you'll be more efficient after using it.
That's right.
So, should I ask you, what is a drought, Corbin?
Well, very basically, it's just the absence of water. But a more, you know, longer-winded answer, it's a prolonged period with less than average rainfall or snow amounts in a particular region. And right now, the western United States, I think according to which source you look at, about 90% of it is currently in a drought. In different, you know, it could be like a mega drought.
Yeah,
some will call it. That started since like 2000. And you know, when we say the West, that's kind of a broad term, and specifically, it's about 20% of the U.S. population in like California, Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, Utah. Really, a lot of states that are dependent on the Colorado River for their water. The West has, you know, they have some of the driest states in the country, the ones I mentioned, and then compared to, you know, we're in the Midwest. Some of the states that get the most rainfall, like Hawaii, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and Florida.
So is Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and Florida, is that? I mean, they're on the Gulf, but is it because of hurricanes or just because they're on the Gulf?
Oh, I don't know why they. I mean,
Yeah.
I have no clue.
Got to be both.
Yeah.
Combination. I was trying to focus on the West. I was just trying to give a reference because, we're, three guys talking about drought in the out in the West.
Yeah.
And we're in the Midwest where flooding's more of a problem than lack of water.
Yeah. I think if you're in the Midwest, I mean, you hear about it on the news, but you can kind of be disconnected from it still.
Right.
I think I went to like California in 2013 and like all their fountains were off. I was like, why are all the fountains off? There's like, oh, we're in a drought. And I was like, okay.
It's recycled water.
Right. Yeah. So you get it. Yeah. So, we talk about it and you got to think like it's affecting people there way worse than we can probably imagine.
Yeah. But it'll have trickle down effects to everyone across the country. Right.
Right. And things probably, things have to happen there to manage that because droughts, I mean, it's a natural phenomenon.
Mm-hmm.
It's Mother Nature. It's kind of Mother Nature meets, man-made problems, climate change. It's, it's a super complex problem.
Mm-hmm.
And there's, as I was like researching it more, it just leads to more and more things, and it's just not. I don't know. There's no easy solution.
Yeah, it's not straightforward. It's like, all you got to do is, recycle your cans of pop, and everything will be okay. And,
right. You gotta.
Yeah, it's large,
more nuanced,
systematic things that we aren't in control of, or I don't want to say have a full understanding of. I mean, weather predictions come a long way, but there's still, year to year, you don't really know.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think in a long-term time frame, right now the West is in a major drought, but maybe 20 years from now, there could be something different. It could be out of it,
Yeah.
And it's not just like one magical rainfall is gonna solve.
Yeah. They can have one rainy season and be okay. Because I think like, didn't California get better for like, not better, but like they had a little more rain 2018, 2019. But like,
right,
they're still well within a drought.
Right. Yeah, I was looking at like some drought history.
Yeah.
And the worst one, I guess, in modern times was the 30s Dust Bowl from 1928 to 1942.
How is it defined as worst? Is it just like most economic impact or like truly driest? I don't know.
Well, I think it was, so going into the types of drought, that's like the there's kind of different stages.
Mm-hmm.
And that hit, I mean, the Dust Bowl, I mean, that was, the Great Depression.
Yeah.
That hit all the way to socioeconomic problems,
Yeah, we all had to read East to Eden, getting in their jalopies, going out west.
Yeah, farms were affected and things like that. So that was really a trickle down effect. Because, so let's talk about the different like stages or types of drought.
Mm.
Meteorological, which are dry weather patterns in an area. So you could say the West is experiencing that now. Actually, I think the upper Midwest had this dry weather patterns. I think we've kind of been coming out of them here recently. But even the Midwest is not just in the Midwest, it's kind of broad. It can be like, eastern Kansas and Iowa and all that. So
yeah,
it's a pretty wide area.
Yeah, Midwest really can be.
So the Midwest can still experience it. Then the second kind of stage is hydrological, which is a low water supply,
mm-hmm.
which becomes evident in like streams, reservoirs, and groundwater. And you could say, and that's definitely happening because if there's all sorts of news articles about the Colorado River, which we'll kind of get into a little bit later.
Mm-hmm.
So drought is causing, less water to get into the Colorado River, which feeds to 20% of the population in the Southwest. And then agricultural is the third step,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where actually like crops get affected.
Mm-hmm.
And that you could say I'd say that's happening now. To what effect, I don't really know. You get different depending on the source, and still data is still coming out because we're still not fully into the harvest season yet for different. Some crops are, and some corn and,
Mm-hmm.
and stuff are still kind of. They got time before they get harvested, so that's still kind of like in process right now, I guess you could say. And then it's like socioeconomic. It's like now when you say like something happened in the West, and now maybe this is happening too now because there's all sorts of crazy supply chain issues today, but where the supply and demand of the commodities are affected by lack of water for the fields or whatever, or livestock. So I would say that the socioeconomic for today, I don't really know. I can't really find a good source of.
Yeah, all that's kind of convoluted right now with the pandemic too. So
Right. Yeah.
It's hard to sort out the signal from the noise there.
Right. That's why, super complex.
Yeah.
Other things that affected that aren't just drought and climate change or whatever.
And I'm sure somebody will look back in 10 years and, point their finger at it because, hindsight's 20/20 and said we should have done this. But so
Right.
how do scientists understand, the history of drought? As how would they define it or track it?
I think today's day and age is satellite imagery data, historical satellite imagery. They also use like the thickness of tree rings of either trees that are cut down, or they can actually like core in a sample
and look at
and analyze it.
What's that? That's the xylem. Is that the xylem of a tree? Am I remembering my freshman high school biology correctly?
I don't know.
I think that's the tissue in between that forms the rings.
Sounds right. But it's just the thickness. If it's a bigger thickness, that
Yeah.
means the tree had plenty of water and had a good growing season. If it's thinner,
Well,
struggling.
Side note, like Stradivari violins, cellos, all that jazz. They're like $1 million violins. Like nobody knows why they sound so beautiful and can't be reproduced. One of the theories is that like Italy in that region was going through like a little ice age. It was cooler for like 50 years or something, so the trees grew slower. So they think that like the wood might be like slightly denser or something.
Right.
But somehow nobody's been able to prove that. I don't understand, but
They're ice.
They're
ice violins.
Oh man. We never noticed. We never took them in a warm
Italy's
place.
best ice.
So after you said that, something came to mind. I don't know if this is related to the violin wood, but wasn't there something else where the logs that they used to, I don't know if it's the violin or something else, the logs they used to manufacture whatever this was, they actually had to float it down like a river or a stream or something, and they think that might have also caused a little bit of the specialness to the.
I don't know.
I think that just plays into that they don't really know, and it could be a variety of factors.
Yeah. Okay, but done with that side note.
Yeah. I'm wondering if some of the stuff that I was reading about, if we were like civil engineers, we would have learned about some of this.
Civil engineers don't know anything. They just play in the dirt.
All right, we lost our one follower, one listener.
No, he was a civil, or she, or they.
Yeah. But you just got to think about like, water, the water like cycle.
Yeah.
Kind of how it pertains to the West. The Rockies. You've got in the wintertime snowpack. Lots of snow falls. You got the snowpack. It can vary year to year. Higher snowpack, lower snowpack. California's got snowpack as well in the Sierra Nevadas. And then, as it melts in the springtime, it runs off along the mountain, and it, goes into the Colorado River and all its tributaries. And temperatures, higher temperatures can affect that water, evaporating before it even gets, to the Colorado River, that can affect, all sorts of downstream things. The soil, how dry the soil is from like the previous year, say, the drought just keeps continuing, then soil gets drier and drier. It can take in more water that's melting off the mountain. So that also prevents it from getting into the river. So it's, I don't know, there's just like so many things that could be happening that prevent the water that's like on some Rocky Mountain peak that eventually may get into, Southern California and water their almond crop or whatever. They probably don't even grow almonds there, but whatever. You get the point. It's so it's like a butterfly effect situation.
Yeah. We don't need civils for this. This is just a material balance. It equals out.
Right.
And the accumulation factor, and we're using too much out.
Right. Where do I want to go next? So I got a nice little map here.
I saw
in
that.
the notes. So like some of the big talking points when they you see like in news articles, the Colorado River, it's at like 40% of its total capacity is what they're saying right now. The two main lakes that they talk about, you've got Lake Powell, which is, as you're thinking, like as water's coming from the Colorado mountains, and it eventually empties into the Gulf of California in Mexico, which I think some years it doesn't even empty there.
Yeah,
like it just
there's
nothing
I think
there.
most years it just like is like a trickle, and every once in a while they'll get like a little stream. So
yeah, so
sorry,
like,
Mexico.
All the water, so like all the water is accounted for, and there's there's a Colorado Pact, and there's a more technical name for it, and I don't know what it is offhand, but they basically allocate the Colorado River water to all the the different states, Nevada, Arizona, California,
so
etc.
Does Colorado make money off of that?
I think they're part of it. They're part of the pact. And we
don't know.
We don't know if they. I think it might be a federal thing, actually. Like, I don't think anybody technically owns the Colorado River, but I think it's like the first. I think they're with the Colorado River rights. I think there's, people that are like grandfathered in, like the first people to have rights, and I think they're still, I mean, think about it. If you're a farm in Colorado and you have access to the Colorado River, they've probably had, their family farms had it for like 3 to 4 generations. And now, all these people are moving to Arizona, and, they're maybe the first generation in Arizona. They might have less rights to the water, but I think it's starting to equal out and trying to balance all these different interests. And I think that's a complicated subject all in itself. But the one thing I did see, let's get into the freaking Colorado River. So just recently, August 16th, the Bureau of Reclamation declared a water shortage in the Colorado River. So that's made a whole bunch of headlines. It's really going to affect Arizona farmers a lot. They're going to take like an 18% reduction in next year. Because you've got drought, basically lack of water. What uses a lot of water? Agriculture is where like 80% of water is used. It's not just, flushing your toilet and drinking water and stuff. It's really in agriculture.
Yeah.
Tons, majority of the water is being used for. So you just go from, one problem to the next. You just got to see what the biggest users are, right? So Arizona, one of the driest states in the country, yet they are the second largest grower of cantaloupe, lettuce, spinach, citrus, tree fruit, nuts, desert durum, which I don't even know what that is. And they're getting, they're going to be getting less water to irrigate those crops, because you got to irrigate it. In the Midwest, you can natural rainfall. Some places just natural rainfall will be fine.
Right.
But here they actually have to irrigate it, so we're just kind of we're just moving the needle. Okay, we got less water, but we got water in this area. We need to move it onto this field, and we pump it and irrigate it. Sprinkler irrigation. So we've definitely adapted, but is that the right long-term solution?
Well, it's a solution that satisfied the cash needs that day.
Right.
Never look back. Yeah, of course. It's also interesting to note that like all those are crops that are not grown in the Midwest, so obviously it needs some kind of like high heat, high moisture.
I looked up Durham.
Content,
I think it's wheat, or a kind of wheat. Just side note.
Yeah. So citrus, I get that's
Yeah.
that can't see freezing temperatures. Cantaloupe, I'm not sure.
Nah, cantaloupe can't.
Lettuce and spinach, you could grow that here.
I mean, but they probably grow at 365.
That's true.
So that's probably where you're getting your winter spinach from is, Arizona, California, Mexico.
Right. So I think I had another. Okay, so further down here, I had some of the most water-intensive crops.
Mm-hmm.
And I still need to work on this unit of measure. I wasn't fully understanding that, but the ranking, I think, is what's more important. So number 1 was pasture.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just to raise, livestock. Second, almonds and pistachios. And I'm pretty sure California is one of the largest almond producers. So those two don't make sense.
Yeah, those don't jive.
Third is alfalfa. Fourth, citrus and subtropical fruits. 5 is sugar beets. 6, other deciduous fruit trees like apples, walnuts, cherries, peaches, those types of things. So like number 10 is vineyards. So that's good for California. They're not as water intensive.
Yeah, except they're all burning down.
Right. So where were we at? We were on the Colorado River.
So, like, is there anything being done to deal with this? I mean, we know California is placing restrictions. Sounds like Arizona, you said 18%. Is there anything that can be done systematically to conserve water that's worth a shit?
I think, yeah, I don't know if they're being like forced to do it. I think they're just, they're trying to figure out ways to conserve water.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the different ways, rethink your lawns. Like, do you need a green lawn? I don't know. I've never been to Arizona to know if they actually, if all the suburbs you drive through, like everybody has a nice green lawn. Have you guys been to Arizona?
Like a standard like middle class blue collar neighborhood. It's more of like a rockscape.
Yeah,
right.
My grandparents
Not
lived
a lawn.
in California, or not California, in Arizona for a minute with all the other old people, and you're right. They had a rockscape with some cactuses,
Right.
but they also did have I think it was an orange tree in their backyard, citrus tree.
I'd have a citrus tree too.
Yeah, it would be pretty sweet. Are there water prices going up? Like, are people being incentivized to conserve water? I mean, I assume they got to be going up a little.
Yeah, I don't know that offhand. But
it
would make sense if it was.
I see you have not rinsing dishes before putting in dishwasher. Man, that's a habit I don't know if I could break. I do not trust dishwashers.
Right. That's pretty common. No, nobody trusts dishwashers to get that gunk
because
off.
They never do, man. They never do. And
Right.
it's the least rewarding thing when you unload a dishwasher and you find a bunch of dirty dishes in there. You have to take out and scrub off. You're just like, well, what do I do with this now? Like, do I rewash it? It's like,
yeah, it goes back in.
Oh, man, it's like, okay, wife isn't around. Just wipe that off, put that in. But if she's around, I'm gonna have to rewash it in the dishwasher and double wash it.
And then you save no water.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, drip irrigation seems like a big one. I haven't been out west to know,
what their
how
agricultural practices are.
yeah. I mean, in Idaho, from what I've seen, they use a lot of sprinkler irrigation still, and they're just taking back the desert in Idaho. You can see it when you fly over. You just see these circles because they're pivot irrigation.
Yeah.
So that's not as efficient as doing drip, but drip is a lot more. It's like
capital
on a
intensive.
plant by plant basis. I was just trying to, for our garden, just try to figure out how to do drip irrigation because your plants, you think your plants will change positions every year. So like, how do you, I'm sure there's ways to do it, but people are figuring that out.
Yeah.
What were we going to say, Dave?
Oh, that drip irrigation is much more capital intensive.
Right.
Whereas like the rotary systems are obviously cheaper and pretty prevalent, like you said, in Idaho and the majority of the Midwest, Wisconsin, Michigan, Indiana, Illinois. They're all just blasting hoses.
Right. Yeah, and I think there's a lot more technology that are going into it as well, like soil moisture sensors, and I think drip irrigation has a lot more types of technology associated with it. So it's just like getting farmers who are probably trying to do the cheap, because farming is not the most lucrative business to go into. It's
big farming, man.
pretty low margin, so they're not trying to go all technical to, because they may not have the money to do it. So other ways like the reusing water, reusing wastewater, desalination. Desalination in Arizona may not make the most sense considering it's not closest to an ocean. Although, if they did, if they talked with Mexico, maybe they could do something, across the Gulf of California. But
even then, I mean, that's still got to be a trek.
Yeah, just pumping water that far.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's complicated because you're talking about the Colorado River, which is surface water, which is the easiest water that you can access. You could pull from to use for any purpose you want. The next level is going to be groundwater, like a well pulling from an aquifer or something. And then the most difficult is going to be desalination, pulling from the ocean, running it through a process and making it potable. Yeah. So that's kind of like, the end all.
Yeah, the last stand when humanity's on the break and we need our almonds from California.
Yeah. So so dealing with it, you're just dealing with the drought, not really solving your problem. You just gotta to survive it. I want to get into like some of the other things that are happening out west. Effects, wildfires. That's a big
everyone's
big
heard.
topic. I was just kind of looking into that a little bit. The largest wildfire was actually last August 2020. Was the largest wildfire recorded in California.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's when like all the news reels were California on fire and the sky was on fire.
Yeah, and then I guess currently there are two wildfires, Dixie, and that's the second largest in California history. Currently going today, in Caldor, which is the 15th largest. So the Dixie fire, it's burned basically 820,000 acres. It says it's 49% contained. This is according to the National Interagency Coordination Center's latest report. And then the Caldor fire, 200,000 acres, 18% contained.
Yeah, I mean, they're so large that like even the smoke's rolling into the Midwest periodically. There was one night I was out in Cincinnati and like it was a full moon, but like the moon was like red. Like I literally took a photo of it. I was like, what? if this were like 500 years ago, like you would assume the world is ending, but you're like, oh no, it is ending just slowly.
Oh gosh.
I don't know, like there's this is just such like a broad topic, and we can go down so many avenues. But part of the issue or part of the resolution has to be like fire control and fire management at some point, right? Like you have to enact control burns as a resolution to all of this. You can't keep going forward just relying on Mother Nature or lack thereof of Mother Nature, because clearly that system's not working either in these time periods.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Like have clear lanes so like a fire has a place to
Right.
stop.
Right.
Maybe rethink building a cabin up on a mountainside.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like anything else that we've already covered. It's like very multifaceted, right? Like because as you approach like the border towns between Oregon and California, like okay, is Oregon managing this, or is California, or like where does my jurisdiction end? There's a lot of gray areas, unfortunately.
Yeah. A lot of political interests.
Right. Yeah. As soon as money's involved, it's all over.
Yeah. I don't know. You kind of would wish it'd be something. So like, Israel, I think I've said this in the past, but Israel is, they're like kind of a model that other companies that are struggling with water should like, emulate. I think California has. I think they've gotten IDE Technologies is a big Israeli water company. They like specialize in building extremely large desalination plants. So Israel has actually, they've just have built the desalination plants and have actually started to like replenish like rivers and streams, because one, they are, they're right on the ocean, so it's, and their country's not as large, so they can pump the water pretty easily, but they've used that resource of desalination to help kind of build up all these other things, replenish reservoirs and stuff, and have greenery in places where it may not make sense, but now they've got a good water cycle going. They're not just depleting easy surface water and groundwater. They're taking the ocean, which has the greatest abundance of water, and using that to help replenish the other things. So I feel like there's got to be something there that we could use, but it's just we're dealing on such larger scale, more population, and also larger area. Like I don't really know the width of Israel versus the width of California, but to get that over to like Nevada or Arizona, is that feasible? I don't know.
And probably the incentives are just a lot higher in Israel too, right? I mean, like we can still sit, and wish and hope that, things will get better. Whereas like Israel isn't really surrounded by, some buddies that are willing to send them water. They don't really have a choice.
Yeah. It's survival for them.
Yeah. Maybe eventually for us, but it's not necessarily to that point right now. And everyone will hem-haw around like everyone does on any engineering project for the longest time until, it finally truly hits the fan. There's like, oh, well, maybe we should do something about this now.
Yeah. Yeah.
I saw your note about, what was it? Cattle? Beef? For every 1 pound of beef, what was it, like 1,800 gallons of water?
Yeah. That was just kind of a one-off source. I need to double check that a couple places.
Okay. Well, maybe not a perfect number or perfectly backed up, but this is the one reason I can kind of get behind not eating red meat or beef, or at least reducing it. Because from like an engineering standpoint, you can clearly walk back like how much you need to raise a cow compared to just being a vegetarian, or even just eating chicken or fish, and like eating cows is like awful for the environment because they just require a shit ton of room and a bunch of water, and they crap all over the place. Like, I'm not going to say they're not delicious, but like, it's a very convincing argument to me. If somebody is a vegetarian, they tell me that, I go, okay. If they tell me it's cruelty, I'm just like, okay, too. But like, I don't feel that way about the cruelty, but whatever.
Yeah. Cows are not as efficient of turning whatever you give them, feed, water, into usable meat.
Yeah.
Compared to like smaller like hogs or chickens. They take the most resources. Yeah, I definitely get behind that too. But steaks are so tasty.
They really are. But like, at the end of the day, like, if you truly make people pay the true cost of water, will steaks go up proportionally?
Yeah, I mean, I think as we sit here, even if it's against like what we've been raised since we were born, and you know, our parents and their parents' parents, you know, it's like we're gonna have steak, you know.
Yeah.
Steak and potatoes.
Yeah.
But you know, 100 years from now, they're probably gonna say we're crazy for what we're, you know. Well, maybe a couple hundred years. I don't know. It just, it just doesn't. Some of it just doesn't.
Yeah,
make
the
sense.
math doesn't add up, but it's really ingrained in the American culture. You know, a meat and potato sort of thing. Right. Every meal.
It'd be interesting. We could probably rough some numbers with like do a kind of like, this be like a macro food resource model with like what the population is going to grow at, and you know, what percentage of the population are, you know, omnivores versus
I guarantee somebody's already done that.
And just like, you know, cows would need, you know, like 2.5 Earths to feed the population in 2070 or something.
But like, if you were going to Mars and trying to sustain a population, you wouldn't bring cattle.
Right.
Like, if you're trying to be lean, you'd be eating like, I don't know, some weird pea-based protein or something, you know, some plant-based protein to maintain, or you know, some cell cultured protein if it ever gets to that.
Right. But we're just not gonna make that change overnight.
No, and we'll probably be the generation that's stuck in our ways and still demanding our steaks. But you know, everyone's gotta fuck the next generation somehow. Huh?
Yeah. The stat that I saw where a cow can produce up to 120 pounds of manure a day. That's a freaking lot.
That's almost my body weight, man.
Yeah, and they, and you know, if they get them in those confined, you know, they call them the CAFOs, confined animal feeding operation.
Mm-hmm.
Those, like, depending on how many animals are in it or how many cows or whatever,
you can smell them for miles.
Yeah, those like produce like the same amount of waste as like a city, you know, maybe a small mid-sized city, depending on how big they are. But that's a lot. That's a big problem to deal with. I don't. It's hard to imagine.
But if you're driving up on 65 from Indy to Chicago, what exit is it? It's like exit like 220 is Fair Oak Farms. If the wind's blowing the right way, you'll smell cow shit for like 10 miles. You're just like, this is awful.
Yeah, that's like one of Indiana's like nice like tour, like a dairy farm.
Yeah, it's a little touristy dairy farm where you take kids and they get a thing of ice cream.
Yeah. So complex problem, no clear solution.
So how do we profit from it, Corbin?
Well, I mean, you could invest in companies that deal with water.
Yeah.
Now, whether those will be profitable, I think that's still to be determined.
Maybe
at least for me personally. Maybe the money's already been made.
Yeah.
Because I wrote about one company, Consolidated Water.
Uh-huh.
And I've just lost a little bit of money on that so far. So that's still TBD.
So you're still holding out, but
Yeah, yeah. I was listening or watching a YouTube video. I think Brian Feraldi. He's been blowing up on YouTube and whatnot recently, investing, and he was talking about technologies where, there are technologies where, everybody or investors or customers or whoever are going to win, and then there are some where, it's a booming technology and it's getting exponentially better, but investors aren't going to win. So like solar technology.
Yeah, I was about to say green technologies, like across the
Yeah.
board, like there'll probably be one winner out of there, but like the rest are probably going to be, turds.
Yeah. So, and I don't know at this point, but water companies potentially might be in a similar boat because you're dealing with, municipalities, governments.
Right.
I mean, it's already in the U.S. Those are a lot of public services that are provided, public employees. There's a company that I've been looking at recently, H2O Innovation. They're a Canadian company, and they're trying to compete with like the Veolias, Suez. Those are the IDE are the big water players in the world. Like, they're built, if Saudi Arabia or somebody needs to build a new desalination plant, they're calling like Veolia or IDE Technologies. So they're kind of H2O Innovations is like a smaller player in that, and they're just they're growing, but they're having to deal with municipalities that their H2O Innovations is trying to operate their plant or wants to get in there, and it's just super hard to get in there because they've got some city employee that's running it, and why would they change?
Right.
Or why would they upgrade their technology if it's working fine? We've been pulling from the river and running it through some filters and blah blah blah, treating it, and why would we need to do this or that?
Yeah.
So
it's not,
I think
there's not like, I mean, there's pressure, but there's not like, the place is going to blow next week. It's like, this might be an issue in 10 years. So
right.
there's not as much of a sense of an urgency as there.
Just kick the can.
Yeah, exactly. Like everyone does.
Right. Right. And I mean, I'm even personally doing it, we're on a well here. After doing
You're
this,
the problem.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm sprinkler irrigating the garden. And I haven't like changed. So,
but we're in the Midwest. We're all right.
Yeah, we have plenty of water.
We get shit on for everything else. The one thing we got is water, baby. Come at us. We got 5 Great Lakes to draw from.
Yeah, we do. I was looking into that a little more. Have you heard of Waukesha? So Waukesha, Wisconsin.
Oh yeah, I know it.
Have you heard about that?
Yeah, it's on the way up north.
Yeah, they had their groundwater contaminated with radium, and so they had to switch to pulling water from Lake Michigan. And I guess the Great Lakes and like there's like a Great Lakes compact of anyone who's in the basin. So there's like Wisconsin, Michigan, Illinois, and I think like was it Ontario and
Superior.
Well, what's the I don't know what the Canadian province that's west of Ontario. There's like 2 Canadian provinces.
It's Canadian. If it's not Alberta or Ontario, like what else is there?
It's something like
there's Quebec.
It's French.
Quebec and Vancouver, but like 80%, not 80%, maybe like 70% of Canada's population lives within like 100 miles of the St. Lawrence.
Oh, right.
Everyone lives by that sweet water. But let's see.
Well, anyways, so the Great Lakes Compact, they actually allowed Waukesha to pull water from Lake Michigan as long as they basically replace whatever they took, and that was like outside the compact, which I don't fully get because they're in Wisconsin, but they're not part of the counties that are adjoining.
What would you replace it with?
Well, they probably got to treat it and then send it back.
They do a rain dance and call it good.
Yeah, like you can't send the bad groundwater, obviously.
Well, no, you would from like the wastewater plant, you would treat it to a
Right.
point where you could discharge it into like instead of a river, they'd Lake Michigan
Right.
somehow.
Actually,
I think
Lake Michigan, not really fully related to droughts, has been varying a lot in water height. Like I think within the last 10 years, it's been both at its highest and lowest points in like the past 60 years. Because actually, it screwed over Chicago a couple years ago. Because the Chicago River, they reversed the flow of it, so they flow all their
Right.
shit to the Mississippi. But when that gets too full, and the Chicago River is about to flood most of Chicago, because Chicago's built in the lowland area, of course. Because why not? We'll just build it up another story. That's why there's a lower whacker, and you're just like, what the fuck's a lower whacker? And you're just like, oh no, there's an area below this. You're just like, what is going on? I digress. But the river was rising. There's like, we got to flow it back to Lake Michigan, but like Lake Michigan was so high that they couldn't, and parts of Chicago flooded.
Yep. Yeah. Same happened here on the Lake St. Clair.
Yeah.
About the same time. That was just so high, and there was nowhere for it to go.
Yeah, there's like, well, I guess some people would have some basement damage.
Right, because that's the Erie side.
yeah, there's some. You just reminded me, Matt, of talking about lower whacker. There's a new Netflix movie. It's about like memories, and I fell asleep halfway through, but it was actually pretty good. I was just tired. It was showing like, I think it was Miami, and it was basically like if climate change did its thing, and the oceans rose
Yeah.
tens of feet or whatever. And so, yeah, the first floor of all these buildings were basically underwater. And then you had, a new level that you're working from. So,
Yeah. Be all right. We'll work it out. Build some more levees. What could go wrong?
yeah, so I don't know. Investing in water technology companies, I think TBD.
The
interesting.
technologies will be needed, but which company will
Right.
profit?
It's the horse to bet on.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. There is so many rabbit holes you could go down here.
Yeah, there are.
I was looking at there's some Elephant Butt Reservoir in New Mexico is currently 6% full. And in the past year, its max has been 11% full. I mean, that's just basically
Zero.
Yeah.
empty.
Yeah.
It's
Rounds to
effectively
zero.
zero.
You're just praying you get to the gas station in time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Average American uses 80 to 100 gallons per day of water.
Man.
It's
Seems
mostly
like a lot.
flushing.
I mean, if you take like a 30-minute shower, what's that, like 50 gallons right there? Maybe
You
more.
gotta get yourself one of those water saver heads.
Yeah, exactly.
Itemize the water.
But like, should a lot of these Western cities not even exist the way they do? Were they ever going to be sustainable? Like a city like Phoenix.
Oh yeah, you're getting into like the existential.
Yeah.
Should they even
Yeah.
exist in the current form?
I mean, the Sun Belt's just interesting because you see a boom right after air conditioning was invented, and the Sun Belt has grown ever since.
Yeah. I don't know. That's a tough one. Gotta love that sunshine.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Midwest doesn't have much going for it. It's got water.
We got water and lots.
Doesn't have views
But
Doesn't
it's
have
got plenty of views.
of cornfields.
It's the third coast.
The only thing we got is tornadoes, but chances of that hitting you are pretty low. We don't have earthquakes.
Don't have earthquakes, don't have
We
hurricanes,
don't have hurricanes.
And no wildfires.
no wildfires. Because we have controlled burns.
I don't think the Midwest has controlled burns. I think we just have a lot of
What?
rain.
No, we have controlled burns in like Kansas and stuff like that, the high prairies.
Yeah, I think farmers do. Yeah, they experience more drought than we do. I think further east.
This
Yeah.
is
I
where
mean,
the
yeah.
Midwest is just too broad of a term.
Right. Yeah, you get like Kansas
What's,
and South Dakota and
Is I'm thinking of what are the two cities in Pennsylvania? Pittsburgh
Pittsburgh and
And
Philadelphia
Philly.
that are across the
Is
state.
Pittsburgh a Midwest city?
Pittsburgh votes.
Or is it Eastern?
Pittsburgh votes like a Midwest city, so yeah, I'd call Pittsburgh a.
Oh man, we're gonna have 0 followers.
I know. I would definitely.
They all think
I would call them, but like the way they function is.
they all think they're East Coast, but they're like an hour from Ohio.
are they still they're a Rust Belt?
Yeah, they are definitely.
Oh, for
They
sure.
are definitely. If you've been to like, if I were imagining a Rust Belt city, like I'd imagine Pittsburgh. Like it just feels rusty when you walk through it. Sorry, Pittsburgh.
You probably got some rust on you.
Yeah. But like it's just like an old river city that was known for
Right.
steel back in the day.
The river's probably been on fire once or
Yeah,
twice.
I mean it's just like Cleveland.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, with that, now that we've pissed off some more people,
Is there any other
let's
city we
wrap
can
it
call
up.
out?
I'm looking at a map here. Yeah, I'd say Pittsburgh's in the Midwest.
Yeah, but from Philly, you can get a train to DC. So, like, that's an East Coast city.
I mean,
Yeah,
Philly's an East
definitely.
Coast city for sure. They're literally
and then there's just a bunch of Amish between the two of them.
yeah. Have you ever met someone from Central PA? They call it Central PA.
No.
Yeah, exactly. I'll piss off that whole group. I don't want you guys listening to us. You stay off of here.
It hurts to laugh.
Cue the outro.
Yeah.
Yep. Roll it.
Thanks for listening to the show. We'll be back with you next time.